Good morning, everybody. May I welcome you to this special meeting of the Scrutiny Management Panel. I'm Councillor Simon Bosher and Chair of this panel, and I would like to draw your attention to the following. Housekeeping safety information. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts, and please assemble at the Queen Victoria statue in front of the civic offices. In order to comply with the fire marshal regulations, if you signed into the Guildhall, please remember to sign out when you leave the building after today's meeting. If in doubt, follow me, as I will be first out of the door. COVID-19. This is the first in-person meeting of the committee since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please be assured that we have put appropriate cleaning and social distancing measures in place to ensure that this meeting is undertaken in a COVID-secure manner. Limited public seating has been made available. However, this meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to attend remotely if they so wish. And can I please ask members to remain seated throughout the duration of the meeting and to wear a face mask covering unless seated. Live web streaming. May I draw everybody's attention to the fact that this meeting will be live streamed and that the camera zooms in to show the speaker. This is linked to the microphones. Therefore, can I please remind all attendees to turn their microphones on to speak and then off again once you have finished speaking. Members of the public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stated explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please be advised that the public seating area is not in view of the camera used to webcast this meeting. Moving on, right. Apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Heaney and also Councillor Rob Wood, and this is what it says in my briefing note, with Councillor Ian Holder attending in his place as one of the Conservative Group's standing deputies. So if there's something I'm not aware of, Councillor Holder, perhaps we can have a coffee later. Declarations of members' interests. Members, are there any declarations of interest? Nobody's interested. Thank you very much. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 3, call-in of decision taken by Cabinet on the 22nd of June 2021 in respect of item 10 on that agenda, appointments to outside bodies. Members, we are here today as 5 members of the Council, Councillors Matthew Atkins, Ryan Brent, Hannah Hockaday, Lee Mason and Daniel Weems have asked for the decision taken by the Cabinet on the 22nd of June on the appointments to outside organisations to be called in for scrutiny on the basis that they believe that the decisions may have been taken without adequate information, of which the nature has been identified. If the panel is satisfied that the Cabinet had adequate information to make its decision, then no further action is required and the matter ends here. If the panel is not satisfied on these grounds, the panel may refer the matter back to the Cabinet for reconsideration, setting out in writing the nature of its concerns that are to be addressed in conjunction with the original matter. Members, we also have Peter Bolf, the City Solicitor, in attendance today in case the Scrutiny Management Panel has any queries. The procedure we will follow is set out in Appendix 3, previously circulated. There are no written deputations, and we move on to the presentation of the call-in by Councillor Daniel Weems, a signatory of the call-in. Councillor Weems, can I please ask you to present the reasons and grounds for the call-in?
Thank you, Chair. I'm basically just going to give my opening statement as follows. My colleagues and I have asked that the decision be called in for scrutiny on the basis that it may have been taken without adequate information and that there was a breach of the political proportionality protocol which was first adopted by the City Council in March 2002. As Councillor Atkins has already broached, the Cabinet's decisions were defective in 2 ways. Firstly, they are in breach through the political proportionality protocol, which is part 4E of the Constitution of the Council. Secondly, the Cabinet failed to consider the protocol when making these appointments. The decisions to appoint Mr. Pitt and Mr. Hall to the Portsmouth Naval Base Property Trust and the decision to appoint Councillors Hugh Mason and Councillors Rob Wood to the King's Theatre Trust are in breach of Rules 6 and 7 of said protocol. This is because the appointment should be in accordance with the proportionality rules where 2 or more appointments are to be made. They are also in breach of the implication of Rule 6 that appointments should be Portsmouth City Councillors. Furthermore, the appointments of Mr. David Fuller to the Fratton Community Association and Mr. Matthew Winnington to the Eastney Community Association are in breach of Rule 4 of the protocol in their appointments to local associations should also be ward councillors. In respect of Councillor Atkins' second point, the decision by the Cabinet was made without adequate information because the Cabinet failed to consider the protocol when making their decisions. This is surprising given it is a core policy and should have been considered or at least acknowledged. I fail to understand how the administration missed this and question whether the administration thought it could make these decisions without members raising concerns later. Furthermore, these appointments are wrong. They reek of nepotism, rewarding those who have served the administration loyally and putting people in areas of influence who can fly the party's standard in elections to come. It gets worse. The roles on offer at the Naval Base Property Trust are paid. When money is involved, the public have a right to know why a councillor was not appointed, someone who has been democratically elected to serve this city. I know that the appointed lost their seat last May. I sympathise. However, I do not believe the allowance's purpose was ever intended to cover the loss of income to those no longer sitting on the council. I want the panel to know that I am not criticising the character of the people who were given these roles. I understand they may possess useful experience or indeed hold a passion for the areas to which they have been assigned. I am only highlighting my concerns as a new member to this council. I believe the people of Portsmouth will also share my view that these appointments are nothing more than jobs for the boys. This is most disappointing at a time when the administration should be trying to win back the trust placed in them by the public, given the strains the pandemic has placed on ordinary people. I thank the panel for their time today and I hope members understand these concerns and that they give appropriate thought to the points my colleagues and I have raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Weems. Members, does anybody here have any questions they'd like to pose to Councillor Weems? I'll take that as a no. Thank you very much. The next item is the response from the lead cabinet member, Councillor Gerald Vernon-Jackson. Could I ask you to present your response, please, Gerald?
Thanks. I think the first thing to say is I'm happy for this to go back to Cabinet to be looked again at. Happy to look at this. But I think, for the record, I don't accept the reasons presented by the Councillor Weems. I think the people who we appointed were the best able and the best to be able to do those jobs. If we do need to look at this again, that's fine. So we'll need to appoint a Milton councillor to be on the Eastney Community Centre because the Eastney Community Centre is in Milton Ward, and we will do that. And we will look at the other things, but I think this has followed a precedent which was followed by the Conservative administration, the Conservative administration supported by Labour and UKIP, which existed for 4 years here, and we have followed exactly in the steps that they took. But I think I'm happy to go and look at this again at the next Cabinet meeting so that we can go through this again, but I think the people who we nominated were the people who were best able to do the jobs.
Questions, members? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. It's just more so on the report itself, because obviously this is a process-driven exercise, so I want to make sure that we've followed the process correctly. It's more to the point about, I'm looking at Appendix 5, and I think Appendix 5 is quite a key element to the appointment to outside bodies. And effectively, I've gone looking gone back and looked at the Cabinet report, and I see no attachment of this information to the Cabinet report. So effectively, it is in my opinion that the report that went to the panel, went to the executive, shall I say, Councillor Vernon Jackson, was probably incomplete. So I'm just going to ask Councillor Vernon Jackson, has he seen sight of this document before?
I don't think I've ever seen it attached to, in any year over the last 20 years, I don't think it's ever been attached to the report that comes forward.
I mean, would that document have been helpful for you when making your decisions?
It might have been, but it might not have been. But I think it's never been there as part of the report, but it is useful that it is there in future.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. I think it's more item 3 that I think if there are more nominations and appointments to be made, the relevant executive member, which would be yourself, may meet informally with each nominee to discuss a certain information for support the nomination. I mean, I think for yourself going forward, where there are 2 nominees for 1 post, I think it would be good for you to sit down and find out why people are asking to go on those committees. Because I think looking back and watching back the meeting, it seemed very ad hoc of we're going to put so-and-so on, we're going to put so-and-so on without actually having a reasoning behind it. So I think that might be able to form your argument a bit more strongly. Would you take that as a fair comment?
Yeah, happy to do that.
Thank you, Gerald.
Any other questions, members?
Yes. Yes, Gerald, I hate to say this, but are you saying that all those outside appointments that you've given to people who aren't councillors means that the talent within your group is so poor that you've had to appoint outside people to sit on those posts? And how do those people report back to you? How do they report back to the council? Because I don't seem to remember any reports coming from anyone who attends those meetings.
I think that's a good point. I think under the Conservative administration, I can't remember ever anybody of the councillors reporting back on the work they did as outside bodies. But I think it's one of the things I've asked Democratic Services to do is to ask for reports from everybody who serves on outside bodies on what they do, because the silence has been deafening on so many of them.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions if I can, Gerald. But on that point, I myself on a couple of my outside bodies have given reports, so that's not strictly a sweeping statement. But looking at the contested positions that we actually had, there were, on the outside bodies, there were 15 contested positions, including the ones that have been mentioned, but others like Motivate, Aspects, International Boat Building College, and a variety of others, where a decision needs to be taken because there were more candidates than there were positions. Of those 15 positions, could you tell me how many, off the top of your head, how many of those positions actually went to Liberal Democrat members and supporters?
I don't know, but I presume most. And just to quote you, Simon, it's the administration's job to run things, and I'm happy to take your direction on that.
Well, just to answer that question, because it's loaded, every single one of those contested positions went to Liberal Democrats. But it sort of comes back also to point 3, is it point 3? About executive members may meet informally with each nomination to ascertain additional information. Now, Councillor Pater Harris has already touched on that. Am I correct in assuming that on those positions that you did not, or no member of your administration consulted with any of them to see whether they were suitably qualified?
No, and I think we followed exactly the same route as the Conservative administration, who also didn't consult when they were making appointments of Conservatives when they were running the council, including yourself.
Again, not strictly true. When I was the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation, I did consult to see who would want to sit on relevant traffic and transportation panels, but hey-ho. Point 4, in respect of community centres, community associations and similar local neighbourhood organisations, wherever practical local ward councillors should be appointed. You've appointed Mr Whittington and Mr Fuller to the 2 relevant ones in this topic of conversation. Could I just understand your thinking as to why they were better placed than essentially 6 ward councillors, because there would have been 3 in each ward? Including some of your own.
There weren't 6 people nominated.
What you're saying is in the case of the Milton, the Eastleigh Association, which you're talking about Milton, you consider that former Councillor Winnington is a better choice than yourself or Councillor Dowling?
No, because the tradition has been that there's been an Eastleigh and Craneswater councillor who has served on that, not always, but mainly. And because these papers weren't attached to the cabinet papers, I wasn't aware that we were meant to appoint a local councillor. We will now have to appoint a Milton councillor to do it, which will break the tradition that it's been an Eastleigh Craneswater councillor. But I'm happy. But if that's the way the paper is written, we'll have to appoint a Milton councillor to be on it because it's in Milton Ward.
Chair, if I may, on that point that Councillor Van Jackson just made, he's just contradicted himself because he had an opportunity to appoint an Eastleigh and Craneswater councillor and you chose not to.
Absolutely, yes. So it was done on the basis of quality.
Okay, thank you. That's a really nice thing to say about a fellow councillor.
So, am I right in saying that you look on the basis of quality rather and ignore what it says in the Constitution with respect to political proportionality, Councillor Vernon Jackson?
No, I think we look to see who's best able to do the job.
Members, any more questions?
So no, can I just go back? I think Scott Peter Harris is correct. I shouldn't use the word quality. I should probably use the word ability.
I think equally that is quite insulting to the members as well. I think you should choose your words very carefully.
Now we reach point 4 on the call-in procedure, and it's back to Councillor Weems for a further response, if you so wish.
It's basically just leading on from other questions by members here today. I would just like to ask, what attributes does Mr. Pitt, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Winnington possess that other ward councillors do not? And further to this, I'd like to know whether these appointments were only made to the benefit of the Lib Dems and not to the city.
Thank you. Am I meant to answer that, Simon? Thanks. I think the qualities that those people have are absolutely clear and obvious to everybody in terms of the roles that they would be fulfilling, and I am following the advice of your group leader, Councillor Weems, in that if the administration is running the council, it should be running things, and therefore we're following his advice to do so.
Councillor Weems, if you wish to sum up your case, now is your opportunity.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for listening to my concerns and giving the appropriate time for questions to both myself and members called in. I will keep my closing statement short and sweet as I have already raised my concerns in detail. I just want to remind the panel that the purpose of today's meeting is to determine whether the Cabinet's decision has been taken without adequate information, as well as any such other breaches of the protocol the Scrutiny Management Panel may determine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Weems. Councillor Vernon Jackson, now is your opportunity to sum up your case.
No, and as I said at the beginning, I'm happy to take this back and look at it again, and I think in future years it would be useful to have that protocol as part of the agenda for the Cabinet. It hasn't been for the last 19 or 20 years that I can remember under any administration, but it is useful to have it for the future.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vernon Jackson. Members, we're now into open debate between members of the committee. Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Peter Harris.
I don't think there's really a lot to say, to be honest, Councillor Bosher. I think it's quite clear that the leader is quite happy with this to go back, so I think we're going to be quite unanimous in our decision that we're going to be making today. I think it should go back. I think based on the information that we've got to us, I think moving forward the report should obviously have this information attached. It would make a lot of sense. It's quite unfortunate that that hasn't happened in this instance, and we've obviously been brought here today because there's been some appointments that, quite frankly, that don't meet what the council are asking. So I'm going to propose to send it back to the Cabinet to decide again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Payne-Harris.
Thank you, Chair. On a very similar line to Councillor Peter Harris there, the leader's already indicated that he'd be happy to reconsider this, so I think referring it back to the Cabinet for a second look is probably the right thing to do.
Any other members? Okay, we've had a proposal from Councillor Fielding.
I was just going to concur with the other members that I believe this should be passed back to the Cabinet.
Thank you very much, members. I don't think we need to draw this out too much longer. We've a proposal from Councillor Payne-Harris to refer this back for the Cabinet to reconsider. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Symes. All those in favour that it's referred back to the Cabinet, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Thank you for your attendance this morning, and I'm closing the meeting at 10:21. That's got to be a record for a call-in, I think.